Clinkz is a hero that has a really good win rate right now, and he's gaining a lot of popularity. The hero relies on a strong early to mid game to be impactful, so here are 14 tips that will hopefully make your Clinkz that bit better. So number one is Strafe can evade tower hits. You can use this to dive under towers to go that bit further, or even when your team is trying to dive through a tower to tank it for the period of the Strafe is available. As well as that, if you want to push down a tier 1 tower early, you can tank it rather than having a creep wave come all the way. You don't need backdoor protection. You can literally just tank those tower hits. Now, number two is ganking from invis, and a lot of people just straight up do this wrong, where what you're supposed to do is scout with your invis, and then when your invisibility is almost ready again, that's when you start to attack and go in. And this way your invisibility will be ready straight after that interaction. Whether you get a kill or you need to back off, your invisibility with Skeleton Walk is really important because it gives you bonus movement speed, and Clinkz's movement speed without Skeleton Walk is really bad. So number three is baiting with a support farming. And often you'll have times in the game where you have a huge amount of damage, but nobody wants to come close to you, or everyone's kind of hiding behind towers. So what you do is you get a support to farm somewhere relatively risky, or go into a risky position, maybe to ward, and you follow them with Clinkz invisible, and this way you can turn around a fight and pretty much get these bait kills pretty easily. So number four comes down to your position when breaking invis. Depending on what target you're going on, you generally want to find a hero that is in an open area where they cannot go out of your vision. The typical way of mitigating damage from Clinkz is that you want to stand near the trees, and then when Clinkz breaks invis, you would go into the trees or even walk up the stairs so that Clinkz does not have vision of you anymore. Number five is who you should use orchids on. Typically, the hero who has abilities that allow them to escape are the ones that you want to punish the most. Heroes like Mirana, who can leap away, they heavily rely on their position when you're going really aggressive to have the leap to escape. These are ones that you can often just simply catch who are wandering around the map, as well as stuff like, say, Sand King or even Nature's Prophet. Number six comes down to punishment of bad movement speed early on. As I was mentioning, this hero's bad movement speed, he relies on a good early game. And if you get killed a lot early on, it's not so good. And one of the easiest ways to kill him is to use slows on Clinkz. This way you can close the gap, get right on top of him, and use whatever spells you want on him. This is really, as a Clinkz player, what you want to avoid, and be very careful of enemies who have slows. 7. Use searing arrows to harass the enemy without aggroing the creep wave. This allows you to even go into very aggressive positions and zone the laner that you're up against with Clinkz. This can be a very essential part, not only just if you want to keep the equilibrium of the lane in the same position and not pull the creeps under your own tower. If you don't know how to do this, you pretty much just cast searing arrows like a spell with your hotkeys and do that every single attack. Number 8 is that it's really easy to cut creep waves in the mid to late game because of your high movement speed from Skeleton Walk. So if you're scouting around the enemy jungle for kills, you can go, and instead of wasting all your time walking around, is to cut a creep wave, and you can kill the full creep wave pretty easily and fast with Strafe. Number 9 is that your invisibility is not broken by using your Strafe, which is your first spell, and your ultimate. So you can use these however you want before you go into an engagement, and you don't have to worry about casting Skeleton Walk again. Number 10 is what creep is the best to eat. Typically, if there's an Enchantress or a Chen, you want to eat their creeps because they get a huge amount of bonus health and you will get mega tanky. There's even a potential strat where you pick Enchantress as a support and you have Clinkz as a carry, and this, like the enchanted creep, turns out to be massively impactful for making Clinkz really hard to kill. But typically, if you don't have those heroes, the ones you want to go for is the big centaur creep, the big troll creep, and the big satyr creep. Typically just like the biggest creeps in the jungle, if you want to put it that way. So if you don't have time to go into the jungle and you need to join a team fight quickly, it's better to eat some sort of creep than none. If you have the option to get a siege creep, I would heavily go for that as well. 11 is eat the big creeps in the enemy jungle. This way you will take away farm from the enemy, and it'll only leave the small creeps left for them, so it'll be really hard for them to farm back up to meet the same net worth as you have. This is a big thing you want to do when you're at head with Clinkz. 12. Strafe does not disjoint projectiles from abilities like Vengeful Spirit Stun. However, if you turn invisible with Skeleton Walk, you can disjoint projectiles. Now, number 13 is that the enemy can see Skeleton Walk being recast. So if you're invisible and you use Skeleton Walk again, the enemy can see these particle effects and pretty much just start using dust to detect you. This is something that you want to heavily avoid doing, and if you need to recast Skeleton Walk because it's wearing out, go into the trees where they can't see you and recast Skeleton Walk that way. Now, number 14 comes down to what are the items you should be buying in the later parts of the game, and the no-brainer item is BKB, and the other one is Hex. The reason why Hex is so good is because in late game you have really fast movement speed, you can run around the map, and it's pretty much impossible to split push against a Clinkz with a Hex. Every time you're left on your own or going out somewhere by yourself, the Clinkz will show up with the Hex and kill you. So if you found these tips useful and you want to see more Dota content like this, make sure you subscribe.